How's it going, everyone? Mitch here with the fourth part in the native Logic Pro 9 plugin overview tutorials. So let's get right into it. First is going to be the Binaural Post-Processing plugin, and it's just a specialized version of the pan knob. This plugin has a complicated name and a complicated process behind it, but it's very simple to use. What it uses psychoacoustic processing to simulate sound occurring at different source positions. And to put very simply, it just simulates surround sound with only a stereo signal. This plugin is used mainly when you're listening to your track with headphones, because unlike speakers where it mixes both your left and right stereo spaces and both ears hear them, headphones, they're completely separate, so you're going to get the effect of this plugin with only using headphones. So keep that in mind if you're going to be using this plugin. Next is going to be the direction mixer. It's just panning, very simple. Ideally, Logic's track panning is incorrect. What do I mean by this? If you have a certain track and you want to pan that track with using the Logic panning on it, say for example you're going to pan it to the left. What this does is it lowers the volume in the right channel. So this is a problem, right? Because if you have a certain stereo signal being sent through it, you're losing information in that right channel. So what the direction mixer does is it takes a track, whether it's mono, stereo, whatever it is, and pans it completely to the left or to the right. So the direction mixer is a better alternative than the Logic panning. Keep that in mind. Alright, and also it has a spread parameter which can widen the signal across a stereo space. And this is very, very useful because Logic is known for having a very flat output sound in general. So you can use that direction mixer to widen that stereo spectrum, the track across the stereo spectrum. Take, for example, a vocal track and an acoustic track. Your vocal track you're going to want right in the middle, right? But your acoustic track you kind of want to fill in around that track, the vocal track. So you take this plugin and widen the stereo space of the acoustic so it kind of hugs the vocals, which is right in the middle. And in general, this is what I use the direction mixer plugin for mostly, is to widen the space of certain instruments. Next is going to be the stereo spread plugin. It's a frequency range panning. Very simple. As you can see from the picture, it just looks like an EQ with an interesting sinusoid going across it. What it means is that anywhere that sinusoid is above the line, it will force that frequency range into the left ear, and below it is to the right ear. Very simple. And you can set the low and high frequency cutoffs with this plugin as well. It gives the perception of a wide sound arm mix, but it's mainly used in mastering. Like I said, be careful because you're going to want mainly your high and low frequency ranges in a mono signal instead of a stereoized signal. So make sure you set your low and high frequencies of this plugin so you do not play with the frequency ranges in there. Next is going to be the BPM Counter, and it's a tempo analyzer based on the transients or impulses of that signal. And it's hard to detect a mastered track tempo. Why is that? Because a mastered track, the output of a master, is basically a very high volume track. So it kind of hides all the transients in the track with high compression, that limiting, etc. So it's hard to detect with a mastered track. Keep that in mind. And it's best used with percussion tracks because, like I've said before, percussion is in itself a transient or an impulse. Next is going to be the correlation meter, a stereo signal phase relation meter. I'm going to explain this here in just a second, but before that, far right is going to be 100% phase correlation. The center is going to be the widest permissible stereo divergence, and lower than 0 means out of phase. What do I mean by out of phase? Take, for example, a signal, a sinusoidal signal. Copy it to another track and invert it. You're going to have 100% out of phase. Ideally, when you play these tracks together, you should get nothing as the output. So you are losing the information in these tracks. This correlation meter tells you if your tracks are out of phase, meaning that some information is being lost. Okay? I don't use it too often because more often than not your tracks shouldn't be out of phase. But if you think there is some information being lost in your track, it's very visible, slap the correlation meter on just to make sure that the problem is not your track being out of phase. Next is going to be the level meter. It's just your current track state in decibels. It's the exact same meter that's on every single track inside of Logic. It's just an external way of showing it. You can view it in peak, RMS, or peak in RMS. Super simple. Next is going to be the multimeter. It has gauge and analysis tools inside of it. This is a very important plugin, especially for mastering. Okay, keep that in mind. It has an analyzer, a goniometer, a correlation meter, and a level meter. The goniometer shows your phase coherency in a stereo sound field. Basically, it's just a visual representation of your stereo space, so keep that in mind. Analyzer shows your real-time frequency spectrum. What I use the multimeter for is in mastering. I put it before and after almost every single plugin. Before and after your compression, your EQ, your limiting, whatever else you want to put inside of your mastering chain, I put the multimeter before and after, so I can analyze the signal to make sure that I am not messing with the stereo or the frequency spectrum that I created in the mixing and producing process. I don't want mastering to be destructive, so I need to analyze it closely with that multimeter. This is where I find myself using the multimeter the most. Next is going to be the tuner. It's just an instrument tuning utility, very simple. It can tune all of your instruments that you have going direct in through a microphone, whatever. Ideally, the tuner needs to be the first plugin on the line. You want to be tuning your raw signal instead of the signal with all of your plugins on it. You're going to get a better tune if it's the first in the line. I personally use it on all types of guitar and bass that I go through in direct input or through a microphone. Next is going to be the chorus effect. It's going to be your classic chorus effect. What is chorus? It's a signal delay modulated with an LFO then mixed with the original, and it creates the effect of multiple voices. So what can we do with this chorus effect? I find myself using it a lot of the time on background vocals, because you can take a single voiced vocal line and you can create multiple voices out of this one. If you combine this with reverb, you can get almost a choir effect that's in the background, that's backing up your main vocal line. Very, very powerful to create a very wide sound, especially with your background vocals. I find myself using this sometimes on main vocal tracks too, because the modulation in this is there's a very classic feel to this, especially for vocals. Next is going to be the Ensemble plugin, and it's just a multiple chorus combinator. It has actually 3 chorus plugins on it, 2 normal LFOs and a random LFO. You can create richness and movement on your track, and I personally use this more than chorus. Why? Because you can specifically give it the amount of voices that you want on the track. You have 3 different chorus plugins to work with, so you can customize it and personalize it a lot more than that chorus plugin. And like I said, I use the chorus on mostly background vocals, sometimes main vocals. You can use the Ensemble plugin the exact same way, and that's exactly how I use it. The chorus and Ensemble plugin can also be used on other instruments outside of just vocals. Chorus is a very classic effect on guitars, and you can use it on any type of synthesizer, whatever you want to use. Very powerful, these 2 plugins. Next is going to be the Flanger. It's just a chorus with a shorter delay. It's just a specialized chorus plugin. And it gives very odd modulation effects. You can make it sound like it's underwater or spacey. Very interesting effects. I would be careful with putting this on vocals, because it gives a very, very weird modulation effect, and usually you want to keep your vocals away from these modulation effects if they're super weird, like it's nasally, it could just mess with your vocal track more than you want it to. So I find that I mostly use it on guitar signals, and since it has a very interesting modulation effect, you can find it a lot of the times on synthesizers as well. So I'm going to actually stop the tutorial right there, guys. Thanks for watching. I will be back very soon with the conclusion of this, probably in 2 or 3 more tutorials, and I will be seeing you around. Comment, rate, subscribe like a freaking bass. Peace out.